Hello dear hiking and backpacking friends, good to see your smiling, healthy faces back in front of the screen. My name is Hendrik and today it's time for another 10 sessions video. And today we're talking about the Locus Gear Hapi Sil Pyramide Shelter. I received this shelter I think 4 or 5 years ago. I've been backpacking with it on day trips and I've pitched it just to get shelter from the rain. It's a really nifty little and lightweight pyramid shelter, and in this video I simply will show you the features and the things that I like about it, and then I let you make up your mind if this shelter is for you. Let's go. The Hapi Sil is basically a kufu which moves the doors, so the one zipper from the wide side to the narrow end. I much prefer this kind of setup because it makes it a lot easier in my experience to get in and out of the tent. It's also pitchable in an A-frame with the special little gadget that you can order from Locus Gear that I also will show you, or you can pitch it just with one trekking pole, and like many pyramid designs it's very stable in high winds. The most important thing when you pitch the Hapi Sil is to make it a very good rectangular square when you lay it out on the ground. That makes pitching it correctly, very tight, much easier than if you need to move it around or if it is not an even rectangular square. So let's start with doing that right now. So when you pitch the Hapi Sil, look for a good spot. When you pitch the Hapi Sil, you need at minimum 4 pegs. 5 is really good if you also want to peg out the door, but ideal would be 8 pegs. You can use smaller, these kind of very thin titanium pegs, or you can get more durable and longer Eastern pegs, which in high wind and bad weather make sure that your tent doesn't fly away. You also will need 1 or 2 trekking poles and the gadget if you want to pitch it in an A-frame. I will first pitch the Hapi Sil with 1 trekking pole. It's very easy to switch then to 2 with the little gadget once we have our good rectangular frame. As I said, the most important thing is to look for a good rectangular square, and that's what we're going to do right now. Start with laying out the Hapi Sil on the ground in a good rectangular square and then peg out the 4 corners. Make sure to put the door in the direction that you want to have it. I like to put it into the direction of the sunrise or the sunset, depending on the time of the year and the time I arrive at camp. But let's stake the corners out and then we can put the poles in. How do you like the Locus Gear Hapi Sil? Let me know in the comments underneath and give me a thumbs up, as it really makes a difference. Thank you. When I pitch out a shelter like the Hapi Sil, I make sure that the lines are straight and that I have ideally a 90-degree angle at the corners. Now it's really easy to take one of our trekking poles and put it into the middle, and the tent is pretty much pitched. The beak of the Hapi Sil is reinforced, so you can choose to either put the tip or the handpiece into the top. I prefer to put the handpiece in because that also gives me a little bit more hold in the ground if it is as wet as now. And as you can see already, we have our accommodation pitched and ready for the night. But we want to make sure that it is a good pitch and that it also can withstand high winds or bad weather. So we'll close the door and check the corners and also pitch out all the other 4 sides in the middle of the shelter. As I said earlier, you can pitch the Hapi Sil with just 4 pegs. If you also want to peg out the door, you need a 5th one, but I like to actually pitch out all 4 sides, so the ones in the middle, in the sides and in the front. I'm going to start over here. It's always a good idea to pitch that side down that you're not wanting to open. And that's for me usually the side where I will not be sleeping. So if I would sleep on this side, I make sure that I use this little guy line over here so that this door can stay closed, and I use this side as a door. Obviously you can pitch both together out like this and then just take the one you want to open away. Then it's a lot easier. That's what I am always doing, so that makes it easier. Now that we have checked our corner guy lines and pitched out the sides and the door, it's time to take a look inside. Good to know about the Locus Gear Hapi Sil is that it has a 2-way zipper, so you can open the door like this, so you can create additional airflow in a move to minimize condensation inside of the tent. As it only has a very small mesh window in the top of the peak over there underneath that little brim, it is a good idea in good weather to open the tent like this so you can get all that moist air out. Of course, pitching the shelter with the bottom a little bit higher also helps with moving the air through. You just need to make sure that you have a good bivvy so you're not getting cold from the wind. But now let's take a look inside. And right away you see that this is a tent with a lot of head height. If I go over here into the middle, you see that I can almost fully stretch my hand and can still not reach the peak of the shelter. So it's a great shelter for tall people. I think the length is also over 2 meters, and if you lay down you will get a really nice and good comfortable sleep with enough height of the tent fabric above your head. But let's open now both doors so we can see how nice and spacious such a tent is with the door on the short end of the shelter. As you can see, this is a really nice way to enter your tent, especially with 2 people. And if you're sleeping with 2 people in a Hapi Sil, it is a good idea to both sleep with the heads towards the door. That way you can sit at the door, take your shoes off and just slip with the feet towards the end where I am sitting now. And it's really nice then to look outside of the door in the morning when the sun rises. As I just said, the Hapi Sil is made for 2 people. So this is a really comfortable 2-person shelter in my experience. There's plenty of room to store gear here in the middle or on the sides and in the corners and the front and head end of the shelter. While you can sleep here with 2, I really like this as a 1-person shelter. It's really light, it's a super compact pack size, it's very great in high winds, and there's a lot of space for 1 person. I can sleep on one side and have all my stuff spread out on the other side of the tent, and I still can get easily in and out of the shelter. Like with every shelter, there is room for improvement. For example, I think that the guy outlines are too short. There's something like 10 centimeters, which for my needs and the environments that I camp is often just a little bit too little, and it makes pitching and staking out a little bit more of a hassle than it has to be. So I think that if they would be something like 20 or 30 centimeters long, it would be a lot easier to pitch the shelter in difficult grounds. And this is pretty easy, it's an almost flat field, so no problems. But if you're in the forest and there's roots or rocks that are obstructing it, it's really nice to be able to go a little bit further to put in that peg and not needing to move the whole shelter to a new location. Similarly, I think that the little mesh window in the peak of the shelter is simply too small. I also pretty much would wish for a second one on the opposite side, that it could create a little bit of a better airflow inside of the tent from the top. Hot air with the moisture rises to the top, so it would be great if there would be a big mesh window on both sides with which it can escape. Except these 2 things, so the 2 short guy lines around the tent and the 2 small mesh window in the top of the shelter, I can think of no shortcomings of the Hapi Sil. I have used this in very wet weather and I haven't had a problem in it, and I really enjoyed my dry little shelter, being out of the rain and sleeping comfortably. I also have used a Locus Gear Kufu for a very long time, and I own one in Sil Nylon and one in Event, and the Event one is my winter tent, but I much prefer the door arrangement on the Hapi Sil. This is for me so much more comfortable to go in and out than instead of having the door on this really wide side. Of course, having the door like in a Khufu also has its advantages, but for me this is a lot more comfortable and allows me to spread out my gear in my tent in a better and more organized manner. Alright, to round things off, I now will still pitch the Hapi Sil in an A-frame with a second pole and this little gadget that you also can purchase from Locus Gear. And then we'll have another look inside and see how much of a difference it makes to not have the pole in the middle, which is really nice for couples that want to sleep close together. There are different ways to do this, as usually my preferred way is to put both poles with the tips inside of this little thing, and then make one that is movable and one that's also almost already ready. And then we're just entering it like this into the shelter. Oops. And now we are extending the trekking poles to the maximum and move them to the side of the shelter to create one really big living space in the center of the shelter. Now this isn't perfect, as my two trekking poles are a little bit on the short side, so you should look for a little bit longer trekking poles so you can put them more to the side of the shelter. But I hope it gives you the picture that you need to make a decision if this is something you want, and if you already have long trekking poles or if you prefer the single trekking pole setup in the middle. This is really nice, as I said, for couples that want to squeeze together in the middle, maybe because it's getting cold or for other reasons. And it also, of course, gives you more free space. I myself prefer usually the one pole in the middle solution. It goes, in my opinion, a little bit more faster and is less hassle. Well, that's it from me and the Locus Gear Hapi Sil. I hope you enjoyed this tent sessions video about this really nifty pyramid shelter. If you did, I would appreciate if you leave me a thumbs up, as it really makes a difference. And if you want to see more tent session videos, smack that subscribe button and the bell next to it. As always, life is better outside, especially if we still have a beautiful autumn like this. In that sense, go out, enjoy nature, protect it, and I see you in the next video. Bye!